starting with setting expectations. What can we expect from this Notre Dame football team in 2025? Is it playoff or bust? Is it one win or bust? Is there an expectation to get back to the national championship? When we look at this schedule, it's more front loaded. So we're going to have to rely on a quarterback, whether that's CJ Carr, Steve Angeli, and Kenny Minchey, to hit the ground running. We're going to have to make sure that we lean on the run game. We have a great returning running back room, and we're going to have to see what we got in the wide receivers. Those guys transferring in and some of the returners are also going to be very important for this team. As we all know, the offensive line and the defensive line, in my opinion, and I think everybody would have to agree, is at least deep. Now, maybe you don't have that top-end player on the defensive line just yet, but that player probably will rise to the occasion by the time fall comes around, and definitely by the time we end up going to play Miami. But the offensive line, defensive line should usually be taken care of as far as Notre Dame football is concerned, as we all know. And we got plenty of young guys in the defensive back room and the secondary that should also be able to lead us. So talking expectations, we have to look at the schedule. We have to assess if this schedule is tougher than last season. In my opinion, I do think that the schedule that Notre Dame is working with is a little bit more difficult than last season, at least to start. As we all know, we opened last year up against Texas A&M. This year, again, in week 2, going to be playing Texas A&M. That is going to be huge. But right before that is at Miami. Miami is a completely different football team this season. They have Carson Beck at the helm, not Cam Ward. He's off to the NFL. How will they look come fall? I think they're still going to be very, very good. They're losing pretty much all of their receivers. So I think that that's very good for Notre Dame because they don't have to feel too overwhelmed by playing a Miami team that's should be firing on all cylinders, but they're going to be ready for that game. It's going to be a bit of a rivalry game, a non-conference game, obviously, for Miami, and that's going to be something to look out for. Can this Notre Dame team come in and take care of business in that first week? Should be something to look for. I think it'll be extremely important as an indicator for how this season's going to go. But as we all know, even in last season, when we lost to Northern Illinois, it wasn't the end of the world to suffer a loss in the first couple of weeks. If you can get out of Texas A&M and Miami 1-1, I still think that the rest of the schedule is very doable. I don't know exactly if a 2-loss Notre Dame team can get in with this schedule, but I definitely think, obviously, a 1-loss team definitely can. So if you're 1-1 at the end of the first 2 weeks, that's a dub, in my opinion, because then after that, you got Purdue, and then you're at Arkansas. Arkansas could be good. They could not be good. We'll just have to wait and see what they end up doing, especially in the fall camp. But I would still say that they're not on the level of Notre Dame. So starting maybe 3-1, that would be a big boost, especially whenever you go play a team that you haven't played before in Boise State. That is going to be another tough test. But as I mentioned earlier, with some of the returners and the players leaving for a team like Miami, it's the same situation for Boise State. They're ranked number 24th in the kind of like way too early rankings right now, but they could still be a major challenge, even if they don't hit that mark at being the 24th team in the country or whatever they might be by week 5. Now, I do still think that Notre Dame should be able to take care of business. So let's take a look at the rest of the schedule. We got NC State after that, USC, at Boston College, Navy, at Pitt, and then Syracuse and Stanford to end the season. Now, not a murderer's row as far as the rest of that schedule looks. Again, USC is a bit of a wild card. I definitely could see them potentially taking advantage of some of the things that Notre Dame does well. And I think Lincoln Riley has a sense of urgency with this squad and with his program that could potentially knock off Notre Dame if they are looking too far ahead. If by that point they have won every single game or they only have one loss, that USC game, even though it is at home, could potentially shock Notre Dame in a sense. Just keeping our eyes peeled for that. But let's now that we've looked at the schedule, let's take a look at what exactly we want from this team come the playoffs. Last season, they beat Indiana, and it wasn't really close. But Indiana should be much improved this year, They're obviously looking to make a jump. What is their expectations, right? Their expectations could be something along the lines of a team that wants to get a win in the college football playoff. When we look at Notre Dame, is last year repeatable? Can we replicate the success that we had in the playoffs? I think that this Notre Dame team can. I think that they certainly have lost some of the players, but we're in a different spot than a team like Indiana. When we set expectations, it's got to be something along the lines of, in my opinion, getting to the second round, past the first round, no matter who it is. We were able to take care of Indiana and then obviously take care of business against Penn State, against Georgia. And that is where we found ourselves in the championship. Is that something that Notre Dame can do this year? I don't know if they can make a full-fledged run, but this team could look completely different, especially by early spring. Obviously, this schedule and everything along the lines of this culture is pointing to another playoff appearance at the very least. So I think that is at the baseline, the expectation. And with some of what the other teams are and the other programs are trying to chase, I think that Notre Dame could potentially match. We aren't most likely going to get a draw in the first round against a team like Indiana again, who hasn't been there, who was ultra conservative and in my opinion, good matchup in Notre Dame's favor. But I still think that the expectation would be that they can take control of that first round and be able to move on further. I think it's huge for recruiting. Recruiting has been sky high, especially in recent years under Marcus Freeman. So they certainly have the bodies and they have the transfer portal bodies to make another run, no matter how you slice it. I would say final verdict, this team should have a win in the playoffs under their belt by the end of the season. I think that that's the expectation. That is a reasonable expectation. And when we compare ourselves separately from Indiana and to programs such as Ohio State, maybe even Georgia, Alabama, real blue bloods that are still very relevant in college football, you have to think that this Notre Dame team is expecting to get a playoff win. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, if that is a fair assessment or what you're expecting from Notre Dame this season. I think that they can do that.